Hey, what's up everyone? Today I'm going to be teaching you how to color grade and color correct in Adobe After Effects without any plugins. Now, if you use a specific plugin, it would probably be easier just because someone has built a software for all of this stuff. And so if you use that software, it's going to be, just that much easier. But After Effects is a very powerful program and it's perfectly capable of doing any color correction and color grading. It just might take a little extra work. So the first disclaimer, I guess, on this is that color correction is an art form, so it could take you hours and hours and hours to find the look you're going for. I know musicians that will spend, 6-7 hours on just one riff of a song because it's a part of the art, it's a part of the piece, and sometimes you have to put in the hours to get it just how it is in your head. So I'm going to show you the technical aspect of how you can get that done, but understand that it could take you some hours and a lot of trial and error to get a look that you want. A lot of times you'll put a bunch of stuff together and it'll look really crappy, and then you'll redo it and it'll look really crappy, and it'll keep looking crappy until you redo it into the way that you want, and that's just going to take some trial and error. There are 2 or 3 main tools that After Effects has that allows you to do color correction really quickly, and that is the curves, the levels, and the hue and saturation effects. The first one we're going to go over is the levels, and so just go into your effects and presets and search levels. I'm going to go into the After here, and so we're just going to go with levels right here. There's a couple variations of this. You can have auto levels, just basic levels, and then levels with individual controls. I'll throw them all in there just so you can see what they all look like. So auto levels does everything for you. It uses an algorithm to figure out what it thinks is best. So you see it did a slight blue color correction, and I actually really like that look. I think that it did a really good job there of correcting the white balance and fixing things. And understand that color correction is just trying to get all of your images to look the same, to fix any instances inside the scene that may have changed things. For example, if your white balance, if it's really yellow or really blue, it has a weird tint to it, some of the colors weren't represented right, that's color correction. Color grading is giving it a look. So auto levels is actually really good if you just want to drag that on and just keep moving so you can get into color grading. However, if you have more than one piece of footage and you auto level all the pieces of footage, they'll probably all be a little bit different, so you're going to have to color correct later or earlier footage so it all matches one look. So that's auto levels. We're going to go ahead and delete out of there. Then we have levels, and then levels with individual controls. And the only difference between these is levels has more of a wide sort of view on affecting levels, while individual controls gives you the individual options of red, green, blue, alpha, stuff like that. This one is for if you're really trying to get down into the nitpicky or you just like that way of controlling things. We're going to go ahead and just use the basic levels. Over here you have your histogram. That is a representation of the colors in a graphical format. So on the left side is your lows, your shadows, your darks. So that's a low end. That side of the tree is low end. And on the right you have your highlights. And if you see, they're blown out because I have a sky in here. And because my camera isn't, top of the line, that blew out the top range that it could go to. So you have these spikes up here, which just means that the sky is blown out. It usually happens. Imagine on a cloudy day, when you look up, you can see individual clouds floating by, but usually on cameras, it's just one big white space. It's because it's all been blown out. So on the left and right here, we have adjustments of the top of the whites, and then the darks, the blacks, and then in the middle you have the gamma, which is kind of the overall lightness to the scene. So if we drag the right one in a little bit, you'll see that it's going to completely get white as we go farther and farther to the left. So it's bringing everything up into the whites a little bit, and that's mainly because also the gamma is moving with it. And once the gamma hits the very end, it's going to all go white because you just told all colors to go to white. In the right side is the exact opposite. It's going to go all to black if you go over. Almost all to black. There's still a little bit of color with this one. And the important part of color correction and color grading is small changes are really what makes something. So for this, let's just bring the brightness up just a little bit. And we're going to do that. Let's see. slight recontrast, and then let's crush the blacks a little bit, which just means make the blacks more black. You lose a little bit of detail, but some of the detail wasn't really focus of the scene, so it's okay. Like, you'll lose some of the individual leaves back here, but you still have a good forest, and it gives a cool look to it. You can also do it right here where you're directly translating the output black and output white, and all of these are in sliders down here as well. So just move it around and try to really find something that you like. Just go up a little bit, down a little bit, and kind of get the feeling of what you like in that scene. So I kind of like the contrast we added to this. It was just really, really minute contrast, but it is a little bit of a difference. If you'll see right here, so I'm going to get these right about the same point. And so the before and the after, see, it's very small, but it made the image come to life. This one's kind of flat, which means that all the colors are really close together. This one brought them out a little bit, made it clearer, made it look just so much better. And it's just very small changes, and that's just the first step. So now let's go into our curves. And curves is just that. It is a graph that you make curve, and the curves are in a relation to the lightness and the darkness of a certain color or all of colors in general. So RGB means red, green, blue, and it means all of the colors. An important aspect to understand about curves is the color wheel right here. So every primary color has a complementary color. So here's your red, your green, and your blue. And basically when you're color correcting, if you move a slider one direction, so for example, if you're in the blue and you move it towards blue, everything's going to become more blue. If you move it away from blue, blue is going to be taken out of it, and then its complementary color, which is the orange and the yellow-ish area, is going to be brought in. And so that's true for all of the colors. And you kind of had to get in that mindset. If you want your image to be more yellow, you need to remove some magenta. If you want it to be, you know, more green, you might want to remove a little bit of red. Stuff like that. You'll start to get in more of an understanding when I show you that, but the color wheel is very important in this aspect. So back over here, so we have our RGB. This is our curve. This is our highlights getting to midtones and then our lows again. If we bring these up over here, you can see it again brought everything up. However, if maybe we wanted just the highlights to get, you know, closer to white, and then like that creates a very weird sort of look, but that's kind of how curves work. So we're just going to Control Z out of that, and let's go affect our blues. I want to add just a little bit of blue into this scene. So I'm going to just drag up the shadows just a little bit, and then drag the mid back to the mid, and let's see. So I can either go two ways here. I can make the highlights a little more yellow, which kind of gets a cool feel to it, or I could make them more blue, which gives a literal cool feeling to it, a more blue sort of dreary almost feeling to it. I, however, am going to go on the bottom side here. I'm going to give it a little bit of correction towards yellow in the highlights, and the reason I'm doing this is I'm going to show an effect later, and I think this will really go along with it. So now we have a kind of a color grading to it. So before we just got it looking nice, and now it sort of has a style to it, little punchy blacks with a blue sort of base tone, and then we have yellow kind of funneling in there. And complementaries usually look really good together if you can make it so they aren't conflicting with one another. If they're accenting one another, they'll look really nice. So if we go to the before and after again, we can see that it's getting a little bit of a style now. It's getting a personality to it. So the next thing we should do is add a little bit of saturation to it, maybe. So if we go into hue and saturation, just search hue or saturation, and it'll come up under color correction. Drag that in, and understand the order of these is actually important. So the order goes top to bottom. So anything on the top affects everything beneath it. So very minute things with that, but if you curve something and then you try to hue and saturate it, it might be changing the color of the curve instead of changing the color of the footage. Just be wary of that, and understand that if you change these around, your effect is going to look slightly different. So our master hue and saturation is right here. Hue is, we can just mess with it right here. It's going to change all the colors to something. It's very, very destructive and extremely, aggressive coloring technique. A lot of people, if you want to do something with it, it'll be like a couple points in one direction. So a little bit like, maybe I just went a little bit towards green or something like that to give it a look. But understand that if you go any farther than a couple points, you're going to get a very stylistic look. And I actually like going down a little bit because it adds a little bit of red into the scene. So if we just go back to normal and we go down a little bit, it adds a little bit of red, which I think is a really cool sort of effect to this. So I'm going to go with that. And then we can just add a little bit of saturation. And understand that if you add a ton of saturation, it's going to look very bad. And even like down here, you can still see that the colors are really popping too much and it looks unreal. It looks fake, and then the color data is actually being lost, and they're just kind of having to guess in between pixels. So if we lower this down, let's just add a tiny bit. And see, now it looks all grayed out and plain, but that's like the effect that once you add saturation, it's hard to take it off because it always looks, in your mind, worse. But understanding that limit is very important so you don't oversaturate something. So we're just gonna add a tiny bit of saturation here, maybe. And you'll start to see it, like, so right around here it looks kind of good, but some elements in here start to look a little bit funny, like around these things start to look really blown out and the colors start to blend in weird ways in the distance. So I'm gonna bring it down to maybe around 16. And so now this is our flat image, and we're getting some color and we're getting some really good sort of views to this, like a really good feeling to it that I could add into a movie and I'd feel really good about it. So that's really the primary color correction. If you understand these tools, you will understand color correction and color grading in Adobe After Effects. And you'll actually have a lot more of a powerful understanding of it. So if you later on get a plugin for it, you'll understand how the plugin works more, and you'll be able to fine-tune the things and become a better colorist later on. So that's primary, and now there's something called secondary color correction. Now secondary color correction is color correction on a certain element. So what we're going to do, for example, actually, this is one, change to color. Change to color is a secondary color correction because you're not affecting the entire image, you're affecting one part of the image. You're affecting, maybe you want to change the color of this card to a black or a gray because you think it fit more with the scene. You're trying to change this blue sign away. You think that this color needs more of an oomph, so maybe all the reds are going to be bumped up. So it's a very specific color correction, and change to color does really good on this. So I'm going to try to make this into a fall sort of scene. I already did it a little bit with the hue change. We started getting some reds in here, but I want to keep it going. And so we can just go up and maybe click, I don't know, like right here. And so now we got a really strong effect here. But we can dial this in to make it look kind of cool. So we wanted to change it to maybe like an orange, a little bit of an orange there. A yellowish orange. Maybe a little bit more into the orange. Yeah, that kind of looks like what fall would look like. And then this could actually be fine. I mean, it looks almost real. If you're going for a stylized look, people might not even notice that it isn't real. I mean, you have like certain trees changing in the background, and so it looks kind of cool that way. But let's make it look a little bit more natural. So we can go transform into color. That one kind of blends it a little bit more there. And then let's go down into softness, or we can just go softness right here. If we drag this up, it's going to blend it back with the original just a little bit more. And so you start getting some of the greens coming back through, and I think that's really important. And then the saturation is really the strength of this. So if we just drop that saturation down, bring it into, it was at 50, so maybe we bring it down to 35%. And now suddenly, remember the before. So this was the before. The greens of the trees are completely green, everything's completely green. But now after, it looks like fall. The grass looks like fall. The trees look like they're starting to change over, and the whole feeling of the scene changes. Instead of this feeling of maybe like a rainy summer day, you kind of have the feelings of it's starting to become fall, maybe it's a little bit colder out, and the whole feeling of the clip changes. So that's what you can really do with some awesome features, some awesome secondary color correction. I've seen people take entire forests and make it into a fall scenario. Not just this little change, but like every single leaf color was changed. And so instead of it being the summer day like it was shot on, it looked like it was in the middle of fall right before the leaves would come off. So it was just so powerful. That is basically it for color correction and color grading in After Effects, the basics at least. Explore the color correction tab in your effects, so it's just right here under color correction, because there are a ton of effects to keep going deeper and deeper into this. But if you have a good understanding of these tools right here, you'll be able to color correct and color grade your footage. Thanks for joining me. Remember to subscribe for more Adobe related tutorials and videos. And until next time, guys, see ya.